The 39th African Union Summit has closed in Addis Ababa, with leaders calling for peace and development in the continent. The Assembly formally welcomed President Évariste Ndayishimiye as chairperson of the African Union for 2026 and launched the AU theme of the year 2026, ensuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. The chair of the AU Commission, Mahmoud Youssouf, also touched on the multiple conflicts raging in Africa, calling for the silencing of the guns across the continent. And now joining us to discuss this further is a foreign policy analyst, Bolu Michael-Biyi. Thank you for joining us, Bolu. Now, how significant would you say the AU's renewed focus on the silencing the guns in Africa agenda, and what challenges could impede its 2030 goals?
All right, thank you very much for having me. You see, Africa remains the world's most conflicts-affected continent. We have active wars in Sudan, Somalia, the Sahel, Eastern DRC, and Mozambique. The Silencing the Gun initiative, I think, was launched around 2013 and had deadline of 2020, but it failed and they had to push it to 2030. And what we are seeing between that time and now is the multiplication of conflict. We've not been seeing that much decline. Since 2020, Africa has seen about 7 military coups from Mali. Mali was, I think, twice. Guinea, Burkina Faso, also twice. Niger, Gabon. Then the outbreak of the terrible Sudan civil war with over 50,000 people dead. And we've been seeing escalating insurgencies across the Sahel. So what guns are we silencing, really? So instead of silencing the guns, what we are seeing is the guns being fired the more. And it's not only by, insurgent groups. We are seeing it across by state actors, overthrowing governments that the AU is supposed to protect. So the real problem, in my opinion, isn't the lack of commitment. It's that the AU has no enforcement mechanism. So I feel what needs to be done is to make conflict prevention economically rational for member states. Right now, the leaders, they face no economic penalty for letting conflicts fester in their country. We have regional blocs like ECOWAS, SADC, EAC, and the rest of that. If they can impose some form of, trade suspension and asset freezes on those who perpetrate this evil on the continent, I think they would rethink their stance before they go on about causing conflicts.
So how does the AU's zero-tolerance stance on unconstitutional government changes impact political stability across member states?
Well, the zero tolerance policy, I think, is just on paper, because despite having these policies in place, we've not seen any attempted coup stop. Maybe the one in Benin Republic, I think that's probably just luck. But since adopting this stance in year 2000, we've experienced about 20 successful military takeovers, with 7 occurring just in 2020 alone. So I feel it's just exists on paper as of now, without any teeth in practice. And if you look at it, listen, every coup-led government since year 2000 has been in power, from Mali to Guinea, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon. Maybe Gabon. Now democracy, Guinea also, Doumbouya is there, but we still have the same military leaders in power. So what difference? Because it's just military personnel changing clothes. So the day you suspended them, that's expected. They won't participate in meetings and things like that. But the coup leaders are still there. So the conflicting interest is among member states. So many members, they came to power in questionable means. They have allegiance to countries like Russia and France backing them, which undermines AU's unity, in my opinion.
So how might the leadership style and the priorities of the newly elected African Union chairperson influence the AU's agenda on peace, on security, and even continental integration over the next year?
Okay, the way the leadership of the AU works is that they kind of rotate annually across regional blocks. So this it's more like a quota kind of thing, but in practice, I feel it kind of leads to a leadership discontinuity, because every new chair that comes in they have their own national priorities, and this kind of sideline the long-term AU initiatives. They'll come in, they'll say, oh, their own priority is infrastructure, and the next one comes in next year, say water security. Another one comes and says, oh, youth employment is the priority. But one thing has been central that we really need to focus on is peace and security. Peace and security remains a chronic problem on the continent because there's no single leader that has long enough time to actually drive the agenda and accountability. So I feel like the problem of the AU is kind of structural. The one-year term is not adequate. So what I would like to see is to empower the AU Commission chairperson, make it a permanent executive role, similar to what the European Commission is operating right now. So we can rotate the chairperson, it can be ceremonial, but the commission chair must be the chief executive with multiple year term implementation authority. I think when we have that kind of structure, we'll be able to, see this agenda through.
All right, Bolu Michael-Biyi, thank you so much for joining us to discuss the AU summit closure. And like I would always like to say, we look forward to seeing how this turns out.